Well, you'll remember when we left off on the mystery of Cabin Island that the boys had met the ghost and figured out that he wasn't a ghost at all, that he was a man from another country who was working for his boss trying to get back one of those missing medals because it was very valuable to the boss and the boss wanted to purchase it. So here we are on chapter 16, The Intruder's Revenge. How did Hanley spot me? Joe thought desperately, crouched low amidst the bushes. Moments later, the kitchen door opened and footsteps scrunched toward him on the snow. To Joe's surprised relief, the big man strode past his hiding place and disappeared around the side of the cabin. Before Joe could move, Hanley's angry voice rang out. "Couldn't resist snooping, could you?" he snarled. "I haven't paid you two just for taxi service. I've been paying you to mind your own business." Ike Nash and Tad Carson. Joe smiled wryly. They must have been looking through that little end window in my bedroom. Ike's whining voice came into his ears. "We were freezing. There's a fierce wind off the ice." "That's a real shame," Handley retorted. "You fellows come with me. I'll show you a place to keep warm." The three rounded the corner, and Joe held his breath as they plodded past him. He poked his head from the bushes in time to see Hanley open the woodshed. "Wait in there," he ordered. Unsuspecting, the two roughnecks stepped inside. Hanley pushed the door shut and bolted it. "I'll take good care of the hawk for you," he sang out tauntingly. From within the shed came angry yells as Ike and Tad pounded violently on the door. Chuckling, Hanley turned toward the kitchen. "Let us out of here!" Ike screamed. "You don't know how to run the ice boat," Tad cried frantically. "Oh, stop your chatter," Hanley shouted. "I won't wreck it. You think I'd take a chance with my own skin?" Again, the two prisoners pounded and kicked at the door. "You've got no right to hold us," Ike yelled. Hanley paid no attention. Joe came to a sudden decision. "I must hold Handley here until the others get back." The young sleuth stood up resolutely and called out, "So you're trespassing again, Mr. Hanley?" The man gave a start upon seeing Joe, his face contorted in rage. "You meddling spy," he shouted. "I'm not trespassing. I came after my own property. Get out of my way." Joe walked up to Hanley and asked calmly, "Did you lose a notebook? One that has John Sparewell's name inside?" Again Hanley started guiltily. "I don't know anything about a notebook," he replied sullenly. "I came for my wallet. I lost it the last time I was here. You probably found it, and you'd better turn it over or I'll have the law on you." "Did the message in code tell you to come looking for something valuable on Cabin Island?" Joe persisted. Hanley swung his fist. Joe ducked and butted the man hard in the chest. With a grunt, Hanley staggered back against the cabin. "You're a scrapper, eh?" he panted. "Anything you start, I'll finish," Joe said. He watched the man warily, but Hanley only gave an ugly smile. "I'll fix you later," he said softly. "No use hanging around now." He turned and ran down the hill. Joe followed, keeping an eye on him. At the dock, Hanley untied the hawk and sped for the inlet. "Too bad I couldn't hold him here," Joe thought. Then he remembered Ike and Tad in the woodshed and grinned. "But I still have his buddies." He headed quickly up the hill toward the cliff. At the top, Joe looked down but could see no sign of the hawk. "Hanley made good time," he said to himself. Then the young detective's thoughts returned to the cluster of stones he wanted to investigate. When Joe reached the spot, he quickly circled the tall rocks and spotted a narrow opening between the two of them. He stepped through and found himself on a small patch of rocky ground, damp with melted snow. He knelt and felt the stones. They were warm. From several crevices arose wisps of smoke. "Somebody has built a fire below," he murmured. "Clever. Nobody had ever noticed the smoke." The thin streams drifting to the top disappeared in the wind. The next moment Joe heard a noise and a soft laugh behind him. For an instant he froze. Hanley! Too late, the boy flung himself sideways. A hard blow landed on the back of his head, and he sank into darkness. When Joe regained consciousness, he was first aware of the intense cold and of a throbbing sensation at the back of his head. His aching eyes saw a low roof of snow above him. Then he realized his wrists and ankles were tightly bound. Hanley, Joe thought. Where is he? The big man was nowhere in sight. Joe struggled to free himself, but every movement tightened the stout cords. Boy, what a mess, Joe muttered in disgust. I'll just have to wait until Frank and the others come back. He noticed that his feet and hands were growing numb, but managed to wiggle his toes and fingers. I'll have a swell case of frostbite if they don't show up soon. At that moment, Frank, Chet, and Biff were streaking toward the inlet in the Seagull. Suddenly, Chet pointed. Look! Out of the narrow channel sped an ice boat with a lone occupant at the tiller. Hanley! Frank exclaimed. I wonder what happened to Ike and Tad. A chill went through him. And what about Joe? Let's go after Hanley, Biff cried out. Frank shook his head. We should get to the island pronto. Something's fishy about this whole business. Joe may be in danger. In a short time, the Seagull was tied up, and the three boys hurried straight up the slope to the cabin. Frank threw open the door. Joe, he called. Hey, Joe. There was no answer. Listen, Chet exclaimed. Loud banging and scuffling could be heard. Joe might be locked in the attic, Biff said. They all rushed into the kitchen, then paused in the confusion. Not in the attic, Frank said. Those sounds are coming from the woodshed. The others followed as he dashed outside and unbolted the door of the lean-to. Joe, he began, but then stopped abruptly as Ike and Tad half stumbled into the open. What are you two doing here? Biff demanded in amazement. Where's Joe? Chet asked. Joe, Tad snapped. Where's Hanley and the Hawk? Yeah, Ike put in. That guy's a dirty double-crosser. He tricked us into this icebox and locked us up. Well, right now, Hanley's taking off in your boat, Frank told them, then added sternly, never mind about him. What happened to my brother? Don't look at us. We never saw him, Tad replied. We thought you were all away from the island. After Hanley trapped us in that shed, we don't know what he did, Ike added, whining. We just kept banging and yelling. Maybe you'll be more careful what kind of people you take up with after this, Chet said, and think twice about causing boat accidents, too. Ah, cut the lecture, fatso, Ike sneered. Frank turned to Biff and Chet. I'm going to find Joe. Something's happened to him. You take those two inside and don't let them go. I want to question them later. Do you think Joe is in danger? Chet asked fearfully. Frank looked worried. I'm afraid so. It's a big island, he added grimly. I hope we're not too late. Oh dear.